If you work in sales or are a business development representative, then you know the importance of your cold calling script. Because even though you might have the right leads and their correct phone numbers, but if you don't know how to do a cold call, then you're not going to close the deal with them. So today Aviral, I'm here to point out 6 common cold calling mistakes that are preventing you from getting that lucrative offer. Let's get into it. The first mistake that I see a lot of BDRs and AEs make is starting their cold call directly with the sales pitch instead of asking questions. And this really is a sure shot way to lose the interest of your lead or prospect. And you may ask me why, because isn't the whole purpose of a cold call to sell your product or service? Well, it is, but that's not really how we should approach a cold call. Because when you're calling someone for the first time, you want them to do most of the talking, as this allows you the opportunity to discover their pain points and challenges. Then you can use this information that you've gained to create a pitch that is personalized and tailored to your prospect so as not to seem too generic. So here's an example of what not to do and what you can do instead. Let's say you're working as a BDR in a company that sells a SaaS tool for marketing individuals. You call up the head of marketing at someone that fits your target persona and you start listing out all the features of your product. You say that you provide detailed reports on social media analytics. You say that you can integrate with different lead generation platforms or CRMs, and you just go on and on listing about the different features and the different value propositions that your product or service can provide. But at this time, you don't really know what are the challenges that your prospect is actually facing. So instead, here's what I would recommend you do on your cold call. Instead of listing all the features, ask them, hey, what CRM do you use? Do you use your social media a lot? Do you have problems tracking the analytics from social media? And dive deeper, make them do the talking and you do the listening. This way you can actually take down notes of, okay, for this particular prospect, social media may not be a problem, but integrating with HubSpot may be a problem. Now, in your next call or in your follow-up email, you can actually tell them that, hey, you know what? The product or tool that I have can solve so-and-so problem for you. The next common mistake that I see a lot of salespeople make on their cold calls is sounding too scripted. Now you may ask me, hey Aviral, isn't it better to be prepared and practice your sales pitch before making the cold call? And while that is true, I think it's more important to have the bullet points ready of what you're going to say instead of memorizing your script entirely. What you want to do on your cold call is make it seem like a natural conversation. If you're just going to be reading out of a script, you're not going to hold the attention of your lead or prospect. Moreover, they're going to realize that nothing about this is personalized and it's just something that you're going to blabber to whichever lead you end up calling. And this really isn't the way to make them feel special. When you're having a natural conversation with them, it puts your leads at ease and makes them open up and share insights that you can then use to close your deal. So don't sound too scripted. Have an idea of what you're going to say, but just make it seem like a normal conversation. The next mistake that I see a lot of people make on their cold calls is not having a clear value proposition. Now, all of us love it when the product we're selling has a lot of features and numerous capabilities. But instead of listing all of them out, it is important that you know what is the clear value proposition, and that is what is the main problem that your product or service is solving for your lead. Instead of listing numerous features, it is more advantageous to you if you can identify that value proposition and dive deeper into it. For example, if you know that your lead is facing a problem with reporting and that your product can provide detailed reports, then on your cold call, talk about the various types of reports that you can create, the insights that your lead can gain from these reports, and how these insights can translate into revenue for them. Don't actually mention at that time that, oh, by the way, we can also integrate with so-and-so CRM, or we can also provide you these other features, because then you're just listing out a lot of things that are not relevant to that lead or prospect. So know your value proposition and dive deeper into it, and that will give you a much better chance to close that deal. Now, if you've been doing cold calls for a long time, you know that you're going to face a lot of rejections. And what differentiates a good cold caller from a great one is how you handle these objections and rejections. And this is the next mistake that I see a lot of people make in their cold calling when they're not actually addressing the objections of their prospect. So, for example, if your prospect tells you that, you know what, these features are cool, but it's just outside our budget right now, so we can't proceed. Instead of just cutting the call and thanking them and moving on, you can mention something that, I understand your concerns, your reservations about this, and I've heard this in the past from other leads and prospects who have then converted into customers for us because they have seen the value that our product or tool is adding to their business. And all that you need is 15 minutes with them so that you can show this value to them. This way, you empathize with your lead by understanding what is stopping them from actually buying or purchasing your product. But at the same time, you're continuing the conversation and trying to close that deal with them instead of just letting go at the first sight of the objection. The next mistake is one of the most critical ones that a lot of AEs and BDRs make, and that is not having a clear call to action. Because even if you've had an absolutely amazing conversation with your lead, where you've interacted with them, listened to their problems, and pitched everything that you needed to, if you don't have a clear CTA, then your lead is probably going to forget that conversation. So strike when the iron is hot. And when you've had this conversation, tell them that why don't we book a meeting for next week? Add it to their calendar. Or ask them if they can connect with you or some other teammates to continue this conversation forward. This way, not only have you listed all the features and had a great first impression, but you also have access to the door to continue the conversation further. The last mistake that I want to address that a lot of salespeople make is focusing way too much on the outcome and not actually on the actions. You must realize that the actions are what are really under your control. So instead of worrying too much about how many deals would you close or how many licenses would you sell, focus on what you can do to give you the best probability to achieve these targets. Now, this may be making an X number of cold calls. It may also be being in the right mind frame to be the best version of you in these cold calls. A lot of great salespeople that I know psych themselves up by always walking around the room, pacing themselves, and being active while making these cold calls. This way, they are actually able to resonate and provide energy in the cold calls, and that translates in the tone that they use while talking to their prospects. So it's not just about the script or about making the calls, but also being in the right mindset and providing the right energy, as your prospects can see this, they can feel this, and that inadvertently will give you a better chance of closing that deal. So these are some of the most common mistakes that you might be making in your cold calling approach. These would be preventing you from getting those closed won deals. And if you're interested in more content like this, then I'm going to drop a link to another video that's called 7 cold calling rules that will change your life, that will help you raise your cold calling game to another level. My name is Aviral, and if you liked this, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time.